The world mourned them, believing Flight PA-512 and its 234 souls were lost forever in the Pacific. But the crash was only the beginning. For 11 brutal years on an invisible patch of sand, survivors built a fragile world, fought over water, and watched hope burn under the sun. When rescuers finally arrived, they didn't find a miracle, only skeletons, buried secrets, and a final message that would haunt humanity forever.
Date: March 8, 2014. Pan American Airlines Flight PA-512, an aircraft dubbed the King of the Skies, had taken off from Los Angeles bound for Tokyo. This Boeing 777 was carrying 225 passengers and 9 crew members, a total of 234 people. It was 12:41 a.m. The plane was cruising peacefully at 33,000 feet over the vast Pacific Ocean. The commander of the aircraft was the highly experienced Captain Robert Bob Hansen, asterisk, with First Officer David Sterling completing his final check rides. Everything in the cockpit was routine. Outside, a sky full of stars. Below, the deep, dark sea. An hour into the flight, a brief, ominous message flashed on air traffic control ATC. Radar. Technical anomaly. Several non-essential systems on the plane began to fail, one after the other. Before the crew could fully diagnose the issue, a series of cascade failures struck the core systems. And then, a faint, acrid smell of burning wires filled the cockpit, followed by a sudden, muffled pop. A plume of unknown, odorless gas quickly spread. It was a potent neurotoxin. Both pilots were incapacitated in seconds, just as Captain Hansen was attempting to radio an emergency distress call. The aircraft vanished from the radar screens forever. The cockpit door was electronically locked, and there was no manual way to open it from the outside. Inside the cabin, passengers were jolted awake by the turbulence and the sudden change in air pressure. Screams erupted. They tried to break down the reinforced door, but it was a solid barrier. The plane was now flying on autopilot, speeding toward an unknown destination. It carried enough fuel, 49,100 kilograms, to stay airborne for nearly 8 hours. Slowly, the noxious fumes began to seep into the cabin, causing the passengers to lose consciousness one by one. For hours, the rogue plane flew like a ghost ship over the uncharted ocean. At 5:40 a.m., after nearly 5 hours of unconsciousness, Captain Hansen woke up. His head was throbbing. He looked outside and was instantly struck with terror. Nothing but the blue expanse of the Pacific. No land in sight. The flashing lights on the dashboard screamed that the plane's fuel would be depleted in mere minutes. There was only one outcome left. With shaking hands, he reached for the intercom. "This is the captain. We are going to crash. Brace for impact." The announcement jolted the remaining few into a horrifying awareness. The scene was one of utter panic. People cried, prayed, and clutched photos of their loved ones. Captain Hansen fought with the controls, attempting the near impossible at ditching on the water. In the final moments, silence descended. Everyone understood their fate. They held hands, awaiting the end. With a minute left before impact, Captain Hansen's final order crackled over the intercom. "Life vests on. Get to the doors." One by one, the terrified survivors scrambled to the exits and jumped into the icy ocean. As the last person exited, the plane struck the water with a thunderous explosion. A fireball briefly lit up the pre-dawn sky, and the aircraft shattered into thousands of pieces. Captain Hansen and First Officer Sterling perished in the crash, but all the passengers were alive, clinging to the wreckage in the cold, churning ocean. 10 people succumbed to exposure and injury within the first day. The survivors held on to the hope of rescue. The next morning, as the first rays of sun appeared, a young man named Alistair, who had managed to hold on to a pair of binoculars, scanned the horizon. Then, a cry of hope. Land, there's land ahead. Tiny, desolate island was visible. Pushing their remaining strength, the survivors paddled toward it. After hours of struggle, they reached the shore, but their hope turned to dread. The island was barely 83 meters in diameter, a circular patch of sand. It had only 2 small palm trees, and no source of fresh water, no wildlife, and no vegetation beyond the trees. For over 200 people, it was a death trap. The initial days were a battle against thirst and despair. Water was rationed for children and the injured. Using a belt, a brave young woman managed to climb a tree and retrieve a few coconuts a drop in the ocean for their needs. They spent the cold nights huddled together for warmth, using life vests and seat cushions as insulation. On the third day, they used bright reflective pieces of the plane's fuselage to spell out a massive SOS in the sand, hoping to catch the eye of a passing aircraft. Life settled into a grim routine. They discovered crabs and shellfish in the tide pools, using jagged pieces of wreckage as tools and seatbelts to fashion a small net. They learned to build a small fire by rubbing dry coconut husks. A month passed. The outside world had launched the most extensive and expensive search operation in history, spending $35 million, but found no trace of Flight PA-512. On the island, the fight for survival was taking a dark toll. Infection claimed the first life since the landing. Factions emerged over the scarce resources. One group argued for equal rationing. The other believed those who worked harder deserved more. Two separate camps formed on opposite ends of the small beach, and a large sea turtle washed ashore, their first major source of protein. The resulting savage brawl over its meat left the precious resource ruined and inedible. Humanity was giving way to primal instinct. 2 months in, the population had dropped to near 100. Death was a mourning certainty. In a moment of fleeting hope on the 121st day, a high-altitude jet trail was spotted. They frantically signaled with their reflectors and smoke, but the plane was too distant and quickly vanished. The disappointment broke their spirits. A year passed. Only about 70 people remained. They began calling themselves the Islanders. The children who had survived the crash were now teenagers, and the island was their only memory. They learned to braid ropes from coconut fiber and to carve bowls from the shells. By the end of the second year, the first fruit appeared on the new coconut saplings they had planted. It was a day of celebration, a sign of hope. In the fourth year, the first child was born on the island, only to die soon after due to the mother's severe malnutrition. It was a heartbreaking blow. The old generation continued to die off, and the new generation, without memory of the old world, grew up in a strange, isolated reality. By the 6th year, a struggle for power and resources erupted between the new generations. History repeated itself. In the 7th year, the small island's fragile sandy soil began to give out. The coconut trees weakened, yielding fewer fruits. Food scarcity returned in the 8th year, and their immunity collapsed. Even a minor cut could become fatal. A severe storm washed away the edges of the tiny island, reducing their habitable space. One of the 2 original palm trees was uprooted. Desperate, they tried to build small rafts from wreckage, but the ocean swallowed every attempt. By the 10th year, less than 30 people were left. Old and weak, they stopped planting new seeds, knowing they wouldn't live to see the harvest. The survivors simply waited for the end, some silently walking into the sea to meet it. In the 11th year, only one person remained, Alistair, the one who first spotted the island. All his companions and family had died before his eyes. Old, frail, and his hair white, he woke each day to look at the one remaining coconut tree and the countless skeletons of his friends. One morning, he gathered his last strength and crawled to the tiny, weak sapling he had planted years ago, which had never borne fruit. He lay beneath it, closed his eyes, and recalled the 11-year nightmare. The crash, the sea, the fighting, the deaths, the small victories, and the endless, agonizing wait. Alistair's breathing slowed. The last voice on the island fell silent forever. The seasons changed. The final palm tree eventually withered and fell. Only the small, unyielding sapling stood as a testament to their struggle. About 6 months later, a tourist boat, blown off course, approached the island. The captain saw something strange through his binoculars and took a small team ashore to investigate.
What they found
chilled them to the bone. The entire island was a graveyard, scattered bones, makeshift shelters, and the remnants of a failed society. Near one skeleton, they found a cracked old cell phone casing with words scratched into the plastic. "We are PA-512. We tried." The world, which had assumed the 234 souls were lost to the deep, was now confronted with a horrific truth. A search team member spotted the final goot-trenching scene: a skeleton's hand. its bony fingers tightly gripping the frail, dry branch of the small, fruitless sapling. It was a symbol of their never-ending fight, their unbreakable spirit, and their most devastating final defeat. They had survived the plane crash, only for life to deliver a far more brutal death.